And this is hot off the presses. Just moments ago, Democrats announcing who they have selected to rebut President Trump's State of the Union address this Tuesday night. We're going to tell you who it is coming up. Also coming up, the British monarchy facing a huge crisis. Ex-Prince Andrew under arrest. Did Andrew give his old pal, pedophile and sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein British secrets? If so, why? And what is King Charles saying about his rogue brother? Also ahead, the world on edge. What about Iran? Moments ago, President Trump keeping Iran in mystery.
I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.
In short, Trump says, wait and see, which is essentially what Trump said to Iran last June. Iran waited, and then Iran saw. So right now, U.S. military assets, warships, destroyers, fighter jets are all in the Middle East around Iran. Of course, the president could pull back, but he will only pull back if Iran strikes a deal with him. Meanwhile, as Trump weighs his next move overseas here in America, he's about to rally voters in a key district in the state of Georgia. We are monitoring what the president is saying, and we're going to bring you live to Georgia if the president starts taking questions. But first, Jeffrey Epstein, who died 6 years ago, is still causing turmoil, and he's doing it from the grave. Today in the United Kingdom, King Charles' younger brother, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, was just released after being arrested. The former prince was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. UK police have been looking into allegations that back in 2010, Andrew gave confidential British government documents to Jeffrey Epstein. At the time, the prince was a top trade envoy for the UK. Here's what President Trump just said moments ago.
I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's very, very sad.
In a statement in response to his brother's arrest, the King of England, King Charles I, said, quote, I have learned with the deepest concern the news about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office. What now follows is a full, fair, and proper process by which this issue is investigated in the appropriate manner and by the appropriate authorities. The king then added, let me state clearly, the law must take its course, end quote. As a note, the ex-prince was arrested today, and it's his 66th birthday. Jeffrey Epstein died at the age of 66. Royals commentator and journalist Josh Rom joins me. Josh, well, we certainly woke in the United States 6 hours behind you to big news over in the UK. Tell me what's going on in the UK.
Yes, well, this is an absolutely stunning development in an ongoing saga in terms for journalism, for news guys. This is a story, the gift that really keeps on giving, except it's really quite a grave, it's a solemn moment. This is the first time a senior member of the royal family has been arrested in modern times. Now, of course, what you said before, we had almost immediate reaction from the palace, the king releasing this statement saying that the law must take its course, also reiterating the fact that he almost pretty much welcomes any sort of investigation. And if they are called to cooperate, they will cooperate. Basically saying to Andrew, you're on your own now, you're a private citizen, you're absolutely having no royal protection. The king agreeing with Sir Keir Starmer that nobody is above the law. But what's very interesting as well, and I've been thinking about this because, of course, when something as huge like this happens, there's obviously questions about the king's age and whether he could or should abdicate and what this scandal shows, and did the institution know who knew what and when. But actually, I think if anything were to save the monarchy, it could actually be this, because when you have a scandal like this and the palace releases just short statements, 2 or 3 line statements, saying their thoughts are with the victims and they're pointed, but not really saying much else. Well, a news vacuum is created and people are effectively out for blood. And I think the growing feeling in the UK is people have been wanting to see some sort of accountability. And now, when it comes to this arrest, they might just be seeing that.
You know, Josh, I look at it through the lens of a lawyer, and the first thing I think is, okay, well, King Charles I did. King Charles didn't do this; his brother did. But it's like it does spread to him, and I don't understand why, since he didn't do it, unless he was somehow complicit. The other thing is is there any proof that there was anything in any documents or information he actually gave, or is it just people are saying this at this point because Epstein's such an electrifying topic?
Yes, well, Epstein is an electrifying topic, but what we do know is that 9 different police forces are investigating misconduct around the Epstein scandal, at least with the former Prince Andrew and people like Peter Mendelsohn as well. When it comes to the king and his complicity, there was a big story released in the UK revealing the money which paid out the settlement to Virginia Giuffre, where that came from. And part of it was reported came from Her Majesty the Queen, Her late Majesty the Queen. Part of it came from the then Prince Charles, and then part of it also came from the late Prince Philip's estate as well. So that's why I think there are questions about the monarchy being implicated, especially with the reporting about the girls that have been allegedly brought into Buckingham Palace. So this is this scandal really goes to the heart of the British establishment. You've got British political figures potentially losing their jobs, questions over Sir Keir Starmer and his judgment, and also questions about the monarchy as well and about the wider institution. Now, of course, it's very possible that then Prince Andrew, the disgraced Prince Andrew, may have probably have lied to the king now, and of course to his late mother, Her late Majesty the Queen. That's all speculation. But what is not speculation is actual evidence that has come out of the Epstein files, which appear to show email chains of Andrew allegedly sending Epstein confidential trade secrets. That's what this investigation is about. Of course, there's all the lurid stuff about the alleged sex trafficking. Of course, we have to say that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor continues to deny any wrongdoing. But what they're actually investigating here is misconduct in public office, which actually pertains more to whether confidential government secrets, business secrets, confidential information was given to Epstein for Epstein's financial gain. And what we know now is Andrew, he's being called in for questioning. Yes, he's just been released. He hasn't been charged yet, but the authorities want to answer. And the royal family has said, you're out on your own and we're going to cooperate.
Josh Rom, what a story. It's quite shocking. Anyway, Josh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Greta.
And coming up, President Trump's new message to Iran, plus it is another edition of the Rubio meme game. Can you guess the Secretary of State's new job? That when the record continues.
Stressed and fatigued? Brain feeling foggy? Don't have the energy you used to? It may be your liver. You must protect your body's most precious asset. Best-selling author and surgeon Dr. Russell Blaylock has developed natural solutions. His breakthrough new book, The Liver Cure, will help you boost energy, detoxify your body, clear brain fog, and reignite your metabolism. Improve your health and quality of life. Get The Liver Cure today.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
I'm Yalmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's known as Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. You can learn everything about Immuno 150 by watching the 3 videos on our website. If you're interested, you can order online or call the number on the screen. Now, Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Get ready for spring now at Blue Compass RV with RV show prices at over 100 locations coast to coast. Forest River Auroras from $98 a month. Alliance Delta Solos from $198 a month, or Jayco Greyhawks from $744 a month. Save on the largest selection of America's premium brands with RV show prices on over 15,000 new and used RVs. Hurry to Blue Compass RV. Shop online or in store today.
Well, the world's on edge, and for good reason. No one knows when or even if the United States will strike Iran. And if the United States does strike Iran, the outcome, as with any war, is unpredictable. About an hour ago, President Trump gave an update on Iran.
Well, we're going to make a deal, or we're going to get a deal one way or the other. We're either going to get a deal, or it's going to be unfortunate for them. I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.
South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who is right now in the Middle East, had this to say.
A joint venture between Israel and the United States to help degrade the capability of the Iranian Ayatollah to kill its people would be welcome news in Iran.
Is that already underway?
Well, there's planning for that. The decision hadn't been made, but all these ships are not coming here because it's nice this time of year.
Former United States Deputy Military Representative to NATO and retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Blaine Holt joins me. Good afternoon, sir. And would you expect that the planning is complete? Obviously, the trigger hasn't been pulled. We don't know if the president or not. Or is this sort of a rolling planning thing? Are they still working on all the details?
No, the details are set, Greta. There's no question about that. It's a question of timing. The president wants to see and exhaust every possible opportunity to have this not come to some sort of major theater war. But we already see Iran is starting to move ships into the Straits of Hormuz. There's a lot of pressure on all sides to alleviate the suffering of the Iranian people. But from a timing aspect, I don't think we'll really see anything until after the State of the Union address is over on Tuesday. And honestly, from a military perspective, night vision goggles will be optimal that following weekend. And we know that the president also doesn't like to do things when the markets are active. So I would look for the oil markets to go bananas right in advance of something happening.
The USS Ford is almost there. Do we have to wait for it to get there?
Well, no, we don't have to wait for it to get there. That we're ready to go right now. But it would be better, and it would lower the risk to American forces if the Ford got closer. Now, she's ahead of schedule. She was sighted off the coast of Morocco early this morning, which means she's now past Gibraltar and in the Med. She's going full steam to be there, and then give her about 12 hours, and she'll be ready for combat operations.
Is the Iran any match for the United States? Or, I mean, what's the risk? I mean, the risk, of course, is we can lose, some of our men and women. But is it, in general, is it really a match for us?
Oh, no, it's not a match for us, but we do expect that there is risk and that losses are possible, certainly. The last thing the Ayatollah and the mullahs would do on their way out the door is throw a Hail Mary pass. That means 2,500 ballistic missiles that would not just go to Israel, by the way. They would go to all the other capitals in the region and trying to sow discord amongst the allies. And so Iran is dangerous, and you have to respect their capabilities. Are they a match for the United States or Israel? No, absolutely not. But we want to minimize the risk to our forces in not hijacking a revolution, but aiding one.
The Ayatollah, of course, has all the power. He's in Iran. He's 89 years old, and I think that many people sort of thought we'd be waiting out the clock for an 89-year-old man. But I mean, so why now?
Well, why now is that he's turned the guns on his own people. They have no food. They have no water. There is a humanitarian crisis of exponential proportions there. Their currency is worthless. They've spent everything into this war machine of the terror proxies. Let's not forget we've got a lot of terror cells here to deal with. So it's come to a head. And Israel's in the neighborhood. They're the ones facing the threat every single day. But the president's in the middle trying to adjudicate something because he wants to save the Abraham Accords. But Iran, unfortunately, has to be dealt with right now. This is the ninth inning for the Ayatollah and the mullahs, I believe.
And you'd expect that Israel and the United States be working together daily. I mean, they're not independently with doing this, right?
Oh, no. I used to work these exact war plans, and I had Israel in my portfolio when I was in Europe. We're hand in glove with the Israelis, and at the military to military level, the integration is extremely tight. And that plan has been set for quite some time. We know what we're doing.
Brigadier General Blaine Holt, thank you, sir. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Israel warned the world, but few, if any, even listened. 2 years ago, Israel posted this video of a Nasser hospital in Gaza. It showed stockpiles of Hamas weapons, grenades, and guns. Israel was showing the world that Hamas was using hospitals and patients as human shields. After that video was released, Doctors Without Borders, which operates at hospitals inside Gaza, pushed back against Israel. It also called on the Israeli military to stop firing on hospitals. Well, now things have changed, shockingly so. Doctors Without Borders has now suspended operations at Nasser Hospital. Why? Well, Doctors Without Borders is now saying, quote, our teams have reported the presence of armed men, some of them masked, intimidation, arbitrary arrests of patients, and a recent situation involving the suspected movement of weapons, end quote. Predictably, Nasser Hospital condemned Doctors Without Borders' decision to suspend medical services at the hospital. The hospital said, quote, the allegations are factually incorrect. And speaking of Gaza, today President Trump issued this warning to Hamas at his meeting of the Board of Peace.
Hamas has been, I think they're going to give up their weapons, which is what they promised. If they don't, it'll be, they'll be harshly met, very harshly met. They don't want that.
Israeli journalist and chief political analyst for N12 News, Amit Segal, joins me. Good afternoon, sir. Did Doctors Without Borders lie 2 years ago about Hamas being in these hospitals or not?
They have been lying for 2 years, or they are really, Doctor Without Borders, not any moral borders whatsoever, and I'll explain. Hospitals in the Gaza Strip are not merely hospital. They are the top of Hamas headquarters. The number of hospitals in Gaza is higher than the number in every OECD state, including the United States, Israel, Belgium, United Kingdom. Now, this is quite weird, right? Because Gaza Strip is not the most sophisticated, rich, wealthy place on earth. So the reason is because it is not a hospital. It is the place where they disguise the headquarters of Hamas. Each and every hostage that was taken from Israel to Gaza described the process in which he had been transferred to a hospital before being moved to a tunnel. So when Doctors Without Borders for 2 years ignore with eyes wide shut the fact that those hospitals do host doctors from Hamas, terrorists from Hamas, injured Hamas terrorists, they just pretend as if they just found out this fact over the last week.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen their work around the world. I've been to refugee camps in Bangladesh, seen their great work and everything. But because when Doctors Without Borders defended these hospitals and said there wasn't Hamas there 2 years ago, it opened the door for international condemnation of Israel, even contributed, I think, to the protests here in the United States because Israel was seen as attacking hospitals. So, when Hamas was there. So, I mean, it's a little bit deeper and broader than just a hospital.
Yes, exactly. It's like a dictionary for a Gazan English translation. I'll explain. When they say hospitals, it's Hamas headquarters. When they say, for instance, 70,000 casualties, it's usually less, and they forget to count the 20,000 terrorists inside. When they speak about Israel committing carnage in Gaza, the Gaza Strip, they forget to remind that actually this is the war within a populated area with the lowest collateral damage rate. So to add insult to injury, if you are Doctors Without Borders or you are the UN and you describe Israel as the aggressor that all of a sudden just stormed into a peaceful city, you actually describe the war exactly the other way around, because this war erupted when Hamas actually invaded peaceful populated areas. So what I'm trying to say, Greta, is as follows. This war plan was orchestrated by Hamas before the war in order for Israel to be obliged to actually operate within populated areas, and Doctors Without Borders in the role of the useful idiots.
Since unthinkable, since it did color world opinion to a great bit, let me just jump ahead. One of the conditions of the peace agreement was that Hamas disarm, and President Trump wants them to disarm. Do you have any sort of update on where the Hamas is on disarming?
It hasn't started yet. Israelis are quite skeptical about President Trump's plan, but I have to say two things. One, Israelis were skeptical when Trump pledged to release all the hostages, and he actually kept up his word. So this is one thing. And the second, I think the real American plan is to actually set a deadline. I would say 60 days, not 15 like to Iran. And I think Hamas would actually hand over some weapons, the maps of some tunnels, some RPG missiles. And for the United States, I think it's good enough. For Israel, once Hamas is weakened, then Israel will have to finish the job.
Amit Segal, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, could this happen to your town? It's a crisis that has hit one of America's most powerful cities. If it can happen there, can it happen anywhere, meaning where you live? That when the record continues.
Hey, it's Mark Lauder. My career's taken me from the State House to the White House, campaigns for mayor, all the way to President of the United States. I came to Newsmax to help our viewers get more than the headlines, beyond the spin. It's a perspective you'll only see on Newsmax.
You deserve high quality. You really do. At Balance of Nature, we don't cut corners. We could cut corners or extract individual vitamins and minerals rather than source whole foods. But that's not who we are. We don't isolate one specific part and sell it alone. Why? Because phytonutrients are woven into the whole plant. We are real ingredients only, always. Go to balanceofnature.com and subscribe and save today.
I was tired of being exhausted at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Toxic EMF radiation is coming from your smart devices.
We don't see EMFs. It's out of sight, out of mind.
People around the world are choosing Bodywell. Just peel, stick, and protect. Bodywell's BioCard protects your entire body.
This little device changed everything.
My kids are my world, and I want to do everything I can to protect them.
Go to bodywell.com, order your BioCard today, and get a BioChip, a $99 value for free.
You know, WeatherTech isn't just for new cars. No matter how old or new your car is, it deserves WeatherTech. With laser-measured protection for practically every car on the road, we've got you covered. Because messes don't care what year your car is. Whatever you're driving, we got it. We got it. We got it. Got it. We got it. We got it. We've got it. Oh, we got it. No matter what year your vehicle is, it deserves WeatherTech. Order your American-made protection today at WT.com. We're WeatherTech. You know we got it.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
48% of Americans don't get enough magnesium, which is vital for bone, nerve, and muscle health. I recommend Cunol's magnesium glycinate. It's formulated for high absorption and is gentle on the stomach. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
Is our nation's capital falling apart, especially as we approach our 250th birthday, July 4th? Well, just recently, an abandoned sewer line was found under D.C. The sewer line was more than 100 years old and at risk of collapsing. Why does that matter? Well, for starters, cars drive over on top of the sewer line. So the D.C. Water Authority had to shut down the road, saying urgent fixes were needed. But that's not all that's plaguing our nation's infrastructure, just a sample, because we've also been reporting for at least 3 weeks about the filthy sewage pouring into the Potomac River. The river, as you might know, winds all the way through the city. Yesterday, which seems a tad bit late, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser declared the sewage spill an emergency. She's now asking President Trump for some help. All of this begs the question, if this can happen in our nation's capital, the epicenter of our federal government, could this happen to your city too, or worse? Is it already happening and nothing's being done? Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner for Ward 5 in Washington, D.C., Kathy Henderson joins me. But before I'm going to get to our infrastructure, Kathy, I think this is a very, Mayor Bowser is not running for re-election, and the city's in a lot of disarray. Do you have an announcement to make?
I do, and I want to thank you. Your show is just a wonderful example of journalistic integrity. I thank you so much for having me on the show and encouraging me to throw my hat into the race as the next D.C. mayor. I'm very happy to do that. I'm ready to just lend my 22-plus years of just hands-on experience, uplifting my community throughout the whole city, and helping our citizens and our city get back on track.
Well, I've been prodding you, poking you for a couple of years,
Yes,
saying that, get in the game, run for mayor, because you're not in the Advisory Neighborhood Commission.
You are wonderful. You are wonderful. I thought about it, and it seems like you set a chain reaction in place that is magnifying everywhere I go, and it's just amazing. Everyone's been asking me for the last few months, well, Kathy Henderson, Kathy, why don't you run for mayor? We know you know what to do. We know you have the experience. So I'm taking that as a clarion call, starting with you. God bless you. And I'm running to win.
All right, here's the issue. About, I think, 92% of our city is Democrat, right?
Yes.
You are running as a Democrat, right?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, anybody's insane to run anything but as a Democrat in a city with a 92%. President Trump holds a lot of the purse strings in Congress with money to the district. Can you work with a Republican president, with President Trump in particular?
Absolutely, absolutely. Since President Trump has come into office, he's demonstrated exceptional leadership. I've called upon that leadership. When I first came to your show, I was asking for the National Guard. When I went to our mayor and the D.C. Council and our Congresswoman back in the summer of 2023, it was a joke. The crime rate was climbing. People are killing each other, behaving badly, and the city just was not safe. We ended that year with 2024 with a 274-person homicide rate, which is perverse. And thank God the president listened. President Trump listened. He answered our call for safety, and he is the president of everyone, not just Republicans, not just Democrats or independents, everyone. And I'm glad he's helping to make us safe. Every time I see the National Guard, it's a blessing. Every time I see members of our 38 other police departments, it's a blessing. And yes, I would love to work with the president to help us get back on track.
Okay, let's go to some of the problems. Infrastructure. I just started. I mean, the city stinks. We've got raw sewage in the Potomac River.
Oh my God.
We've got the mayor just yesterday. I mean, I think this started like mid-January, and she's now just asking for help from the federal government yesterday.
Wow, this is a public safety nightmare. Sewage has no place. Raw sewage has no place in our waterways. This is an emergency. Why are we sitting on that? And I talk about Escherichia coli among, other people that are biologists by training, and we see this like, are you kidding? It's E. coli. E. coli belongs in your intestines. It makes you incredibly sick. Raw sewage.
243 million gallons of wastewater since January 19th. I mean, I shouldn't laugh. It's terrible. I'm horrified.
E. coli and other contaminants, chemical and bacterial and viruses. This is outrageous. Why the delay? I would never, ever delay dealing with such a horrible infrastructure breach.
What's wrong with this? I mean, we've only had home rule since about 1975. But so what happened to this city that it does seem like it's been falling apart?
I think the focus has been on other things, non-essential things, and that's why I'm running. I'm running to bring back accountability. Citizens want to go to work, they want to get up every day, and they want a predictable city, that is safe to navigate. They want roads that are clear. They want streetlights that are working. They want to be safe, and they want to have a vision for the future. You can't do that when you're fighting cavernous potholes, when you're wondering if your drinking water is safe to consume, your baby is sick, your family is sick. People are tired of nonsense. And we have an opportunity here. There are other candidates running, and I look forward to sharing why I'm the best person to lead us back to the road of sanity and intact infrastructure.
Kathy Henderson, candidate for mayor of Washington, D.C. It's always nice to see you. Thank you for joining me.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you.
So, who's going to clean up the mess in Potomac? Well, this new crisis provoked a new Secretary of State Marco Rubio meme. Rubio is known for his multitasking, so we thought we'd do this. Ex-user Invisible Memes posted this AI-generated image of Secretary of State Rubio. The caption reads, Marco Rubio finding out that he is now in charge of the Potomac River cleanup. No response yet from Secretary Rubio. Coming up, Democrats make their annual announcement, their pick to give the rebuttal speech to President Trump's State of the Union address on Tuesday night. Find out when the record continues.
O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
If you can go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Actually, I'm going to Thailand in a couple months.
But do you have your passport and pre-check ready?
I've been putting that off. I heard it's such a pain.
You clearly haven't heard of GovPlus.com.
GovPlus? What's that?
They have completely automated the process of applying for your passport, pre-check, birth certificate, and much more. Here, let me show you how it works. So when you go to GovPlus.com, you fill out their secure online form, which only takes minutes. That then applies your information to all your other documents on GovPlus. You can track your documents here, too. Applications are all online.
Thank you for my passport and pre-check for my trip.
Safe travels.
Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
I'm Yalmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's known as Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. You can learn everything about Immuno 150 by watching the 3 videos on our website. If you're interested, you can order online or call the number on the screen. Now, Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry.
Think of all the places that could expose you to identity theft. If something happens, LifeLock provides a dedicated US-based restoration specialist with expertise to make the right calls and take the right steps to fix your case, start to finish. In fact, we're so confident, restoration is guaranteed or your money back. Don't face identity theft alone. Protect your future and finances with the leader in identity theft protection, LifeLock, for the threats you can't control.
The annual Washington guessing game is now over. The Democrats just announced who they have selected to deliver the rebuttal to President Trump's State of the Union address on Tuesday. It will be Democrat Governor of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger. Spanberger is a former congresswoman and former CIA officer. In November, she was elected as Virginia's first female governor. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp, and a constituent of hers, joins me as a constituent. So, what do you think?
I think it's a good pick.
Why?
I think she represents what the Democratic Party is all about. She has very, very radical positions, a terrible vote score with CPAC. But, you know, she has this veneer that somehow maybe she's more moderate than her party.
Why do you think she's radical? Why do you say she's radical?
She's for all the woke stuff in Virginia. They're talking about the highest income taxes as high as California, no restrictions on abortion, not even parental consent on abortion. So, like, it's pretty radical stuff. She's saying you can only have magazine clips of a certain number of bullets. She's talking about confiscating people's Second Amendment rights. I mean, she's doing the Democrats in Virginia. This has never happened in Virginia before. Democrats in Virginia used to be a little more careful. The Democrats today in Virginia are going to turn it into New York City, and you're going to see a powder keg in rural America because they're going to be frustrated by all this.
Is this a coveted job that she has to get the rebuttal? Because, you know, some of the rebuttals, I mean, have not necessarily advanced careers.
Yeah, so the one lesson about the rebuttal is, first of all, Democrats tend to have better writers. They have sometimes better people to rely on for that. But the second thing is they always say create an environment where you have an audience and you can feed off the audience, much like you can see Trump always does with his rallies. And when you give it in a stiff, cold room with two teleprompters, sometimes those people have failed at those moments.
Well, I don't forget the one where former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrat,
yes,
and Daschle, Senator Daschle. I mean, that was sort of...
Remember, it looked like American Gothic, the farmer and the farmer's wife, and they were both standing so rigid. It was poorly choreographed, which was weird for Democrats, because once again, they're the Hollywood party. They usually have great kind of like theatrics around their presentations, but that was a good memory. That was a particularly bad one.
Well, you know what, it was sort of the one that then Senator Marco Rubio gave, where he kept taking a drink of water, and it was quite comical as he was doing it. And then he was very smart. He went on Saturday Night Live and did it. I think it was Saturday Night Live. And so he was very clever, and so it became something that people, I think it made him, people liked him more for it.
In fairness to the now Secretary of State, he took one drink of water and he athletically grabbed it. But what's funny is what was the content of his speech?
I only remember the water. I only remember the water.
It included amnesty for a bunch of people who were here illegally. So people think about the water. They don't think about the policy. That policy today would be very unpopular, but it just shows how much things have changed because of Donald Trump.
All right. Preview us Tuesday night, and I'm going to be doing the coverage with Rob Finnerty, my colleague here at Newsmax.
Good.
Is he going to, what about Iran? Does that come into the speech, do you think?
Yeah, I talked to my friend who's married to an Iranian American, is a great advisor on these questions. And, you know, the whole Iranian diaspora community is really concerned about what might happen because, remember, Trump did what Obama had done. He drew a line in the sand. He basically said if the regime in Iran turned on the protesters, that there'd be consequences. And they killed something like 30,000 protesters. And so President Trump now has the onus on him to say, well, what are the consequences to this regime when they turn on their own people? And it sure looks like there's a military buildup going on in the area. And so then you have this big speech. If he were to act, would he act before the speech? Would he act after the speech? And it also is different, a little discordant from how he ran, right? Which was, we're going to be awfully careful with using our military. But by the same token, my gosh, you take out the dictator in Venezuela, does the dictator in Cuba then fall? Does the dictator in Iran fall? I mean, there's so much change under Trump, it's hard to keep track of.
It's very unpredictable and very uncertain. Matt Schlapp, thank you very much. Always nice to see you.
Thank you, Greta. And I think I could vote for this mayor in Washington, D.C. I want you to know that.
There you go. It's CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp likes the candidate, Kathy Henderson. It's very interesting.
Very.
Anyway, coming up, it's a potential miracle for the 1 million Americans living with Parkinson's disease. That one, the record continues.
1 in 4 taxpayers was a victim of identity theft. Like me. That's 1 in 4 hardworking, honest Americans who lost billions in refunds. During tax season, everyone is vulnerable.
We're not just tax-paying Americans.
We're fraud-paying Americans.
And we're not paying anymore.
With up to $3 million in coverage, LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed. and gets your money back.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
Let's face it, folks, car repair costs are not going down anytime soon. In fact, they may be only getting worse. Protect your hard-earned dollars with a money-saving plan for your out-of-warranty vehicle with one call to CarShield. Plans offer protection on big items like your car's engine, transmission, AC, and thousands of parts and systems. Call now. Waiting could cost you thousands.
Get your free quote and lock in your rate now. Call 800-258-7591.
You deserve high quality. You really do. At Balance of Nature, we don't cut corners. We could cut corners or extract individual vitamins and minerals rather than source whole foods. But that's not who we are. We don't isolate one specific part and sell it alone. Why? Because phytonutrients are woven into the whole plant. Everything works together as one complete package the way nature intended. Balance of Nature supplements aren't dried juice or a powdered extract. They are a vibrant mix of ingredients of 47 whole fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers. Each ingredient then goes through a tailored vacuum-cooled process, is grounded into a fine powder, and packed into plant-based capsules in order to preserve those naturally occurring phytonutrients. We are real ingredients only, always. Start your journey with Balance of Nature supplements. Go to balanceofnature.com and subscribe and save today.
More than 1 million people in the United States are living with Parkinson's disease, but a new drug could be a major breakthrough in treatment. Earlier, I spoke with Cleveland Clinic neurologist Dr. Ben Walter for the latest edition of our Off the Record. Doctor, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure to be here.
Parkinson's, do you have any sort of sense of how many people have Parkinson's or what percentage of the population gets it?
More than there should be, and it's rapidly growing. There's over 1 million people in America today with Parkinson's, and it's increasing by about 90,000 per year, which is much higher than what we previously expected. So it is rapidly growing. It's currently the second most common neurodegenerative condition in the country.
If we were to bring it to a level that I understand it, would you agree that the brain is the boss and it sends out messages how to move and whether to shake or tremor, and it sends those messages in something called dopamine? Dopamine is the messenger?
Yeah, dopamine regulates the brain's movement centers. It's a lot like engine oil for an engine, and without it, it doesn't work properly. So it's very critical for movement, and without it, you get symptoms like Parkinson's disease, which can be very variable.
Does Parkinson's disease always get worse?
It always gets worse. It is a progressive condition. It's a condition where those brain cells that make that chemical dopamine are degenerating or being lost. And as that happens, patients have more and more problems and dysfunction and more reliance on medications to treat those problems.
How do you sort of notice you might have it? I mean, what would be one of your first symptoms?
Well, early signs are very subtle and very common and not very specific. But when people are clearly generating symptoms for Parkinson's disease, they're slowing down. They may have a tremor at rest, not with action. So usually when they're sitting there, they might have a tremor in one hand that goes away with movement. They may have difficulty walking where their steps get shorter. They don't swing their arms very well. There may be a loss of expression in their face, but there's a lot other symptoms that people will have as well.
In doing my very cursory investigation, levodopa, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is a medicine that's used by so many people, but it's a 50-year-old medicine.
Correct.
And I mean, what are its failings and what are its pluses?
So levodopa is unique in that it's actually made by our body as well. It's in our brain, and these brain cells are neurons that make dopamine. They make it from levodopa. And so it's also a drug that can be given as carbidopa, levodopa, also called Sinemet, which, as you point out, has been around since the 1960s and 70s. It's great in that it works a lot like dopamine does in the brain because it gets converted into dopamine. It's not great because it doesn't last very long in the bloodstream. And when you become very advanced, it's hard to get steady levels of it. So you need something that lasts longer in more advanced patients.
With this dopamine, there's something called receptors. They receive the dopamine. I take it by the word receptor. How many receptors are there that dopamine goes to?
There's many receptors in the brain, more than neurons. So the neurons communicate with other neurons, and each neuron has many receptors on that neuron. And they're fine. The problem is really the neuron delivering the dopamine is what's being lost.
And are there, are there different levels of dopamine that should go different places? And is it regulated is it regulated?
Dopamine is present in motor connections in the brain, but it's also in other areas of the brain as well. It's important for reward. It's important for learning movements and habits. And so also when you're affecting dopamine, you can affect other functions other than just movement.
And when you say reward, it's what makes you happy, basically, something.
What makes what makes you happy, what makes you want to do things, and motivation as well.
And then also it helps you move. It's the oil, right? That keeps the smooth movements.
Correct.
All right. So does this drug levodopa send the correct amount to what makes you happy appropriately and what should make you move appropriately, or is it sort of an uneven distribution so it's harder to control?
Well, normally our brain regulates that, so it's not an issue. It's only when you develop a condition like Parkinson's disease that we're artificially trying to resupply the brain with dopamine and other brain chemicals. And that's where patients either get too much or too little, or often not a smooth delivery of medication.
Okay, that brings me to this new drug I've read about that's in FDA consideration. How do you pronounce it?
Tavapadon?
Tavapadon, yes, tavapadon. That has not been approved by the FDA, but it seems to be a major step forward from levodopa. First time in 50 plus years. First of all, is it a major step forward, and will it do anything different?
It is. We have drugs like it, but not just like this, and it is fairly unique. It's a dopamine agonist, and in that's not unique. Dopamine agonists are medications that are like dopamine, work like dopamine, but are not dopamine. And that makes it unique because it's more stable. And this particular drug is a 24-hour drug where you can take it once a day. We have older dopamine agonists, and the older dopamine agonists have been around for more than 10 years, but they have lots of side effects. And they hit more than one dopamine receptor type. And that's where this is different in that it's fairly selective for the D1 class of dopamine receptors. And so it gets the benefit, and the idea is they're trying to use it to avoid a lot of the side effects that the older dopamine agonists had.
And of course, it's convenience once a day. Is this in your mind a major step forward in the treatment? It's not going to be a cure, but the treatment of Parkinson's.
It is. This is a critical problem, is treating patients, particularly as they advance, and getting smooth control, being able to do it with once daily dosing and not having side effects. So the dopamine agonists, the older ones, were popular for quite a while, but it's really the side effects that cause problems. And thus far, we haven't seen the same kind of side effects with this particular medication.
Would you expect that somebody who's pretty far down the trail of having Parkinson's to get relief from this, or is this someone who's just early on getting it, or neither?
The answer is both.
Both.
Yeah, so the studies that have been done on it thus far are for early patients and moderate and advanced patients. So they've really looked through the spectrum. And I think this medication has a role in early and advanced cases. Early patients, it's once a day, it's easy, it's well tolerated with good benefit. Advanced patients start to have what we call motor fluctuations, which is the medication no longer giving them long-lasting benefit from dose to dose if they're taking levodopa. And because this is a very stable once-a-day dose, they have medication in their system, 24/7 essentially, and not having motor fluctuations to that degree.
Well, in my very limited study, it seems that you can have tremors, but you can also have something, tardive dyskinesia, which is almost like a swaying or something. Is this new drug likely to address both those symptoms of Parkinson's?
Yeah, so tremor is one of the symptoms that you may have when you're untreated or undertreated, or even may still be present if the meds are working, but hopefully to a lesser degree. Not everybody even has tremor with Parkinson's. Everybody is slow. And you also speak to levodopa-induced dyskinesia, which is a kind of abnormal movement that happens typically when the medication is working well, actually too well. And so it's kind of an over effect of the medication. And the brain has trouble regulating between being off and slow and being on and too mobile when you have Parkinson's disease. This medication should be good for patients with that, in that it's smooth, it's long-lasting, and not a lot of dyskinesia was seen in these clinical trials. That was part of the goal, and it's very specific, again, in that it's targeting that dopamine D1 receptors, which is believed to have a different effect. There's two major pathways in the brain that relate to movement, and one is D1 and one is D2 based, and so this is hitting one pathway and not the other. And that is believed to be important as well in how it works.
Would you describe this as an exciting new drug? Or, I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but it at least seems to me that this will bring a lot of hope for people.
It will, and it's really one of the first novel non-levodopa-based drugs that we've had in many, many years. We've had a lot of recent drug approvals of different formulations that just allow levodopa to work longer, really working on the delivery system, so extended release formulations. But this works completely different, and it's long-acting. And the idea is that with that different mechanism, we should be able to target symptoms without some of the side effects.
Well, that's very good news for a lot of Americans. Doctor, thank you very much, and thank you for your work. I mean, it's important to so many people. Thank you, sir.
I thank you, Greta. Thank you.
Coming up, a breaking and entering case, and I know you've not seen this one before. That one, the record continues.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax. Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide.
Real news for real people.
I'm Yalmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's known as Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. You can learn everything about Immuno 150 by watching the 3 videos on our website. If you're interested, you can order online or call the number on the screen. Now, Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry.
Do you have a yo-yo smile? Sometimes yellow, sometimes white. It's a constant battle between everyday stains and whitening treatments. Until now, get Smile Actives, the daily teeth whitening breakthrough that gives you a more youthful smile and helps you keep it.
At 43 years old, I don't mess around with products that waste my time. Smile Actives is easy.
and it works. No gloopy trays, no messy strips. Just add a little bit on top of your toothpaste when you brush your teeth. And ta-da, white teeth.
Just add Smile Actives to your favorite toothpaste and watch the magic happen. Our patented Polyclean microfoam lifts away deep stains for a dramatically younger and whiter smile.
You have a choice. You can have those yellow teeth and just be old Nana or Pop-Pop, or you can be smiling and dazzling and full of confidence. I love my white teeth.
Scan, click, or call for your whitest smile yet. And if you order right now, we'll double your whitening free. Get an extra Smile Actives as our free gift to you, but only while supplies last.
I drink coffee every day. I started noticing that my teeth were not as bright as I'd like them to be, a little dingy, but Smile Active, it works. Got your boy gleaming.
100% of users saw whiter teeth. Smile Actives lifts away even the toughest stains from coffee, wine, and food, gently restoring your bright, youthful smile. Plus, it's safe for veneers, crowns, and dentures.
It's really a no-brainer if you want to whiten your teeth.
Clinically shown to brighten your teeth 5 shades whiter in just 7 days.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Act now. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll double your order. Free. But hurry, this deal won't last. Smile Actives is guaranteed to work. Whiten your teeth or get your money back. No questions asked. Don't wait. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. That's free shipping. A free extra bottle. That's an incredible 58% savings. Scan the code, go to smileactives.com or call to get your beautiful whiter smile now.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
Sponsored by Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, the health of fresh food with the convenience of kibble. Visit drmartypets.com/TV.
Sheriffs in North Carolina responded to an unusual call. This was a breaking and entering case. The suspect, no fear, and had a lot of confidence. The suspect, a fugitive pig. Her name is Penelope. Looks like this troublemaker, though, just wanted a snack. Officers had a short standoff with Penelope, but what made her finally surrender was a pack of crackers. She was taken into custody, her owner was located, and luckily, no court date was required. Thank you for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is next. David, Newsmax. On Tuesday night, we have big State of the Union coverage right here on Newsmax, so make sure you watch it right here. See you tomorrow.